Your skill mastery for this lesson is to be able to understand pitch as note name, position on the piano keyboard, and as notation on the musical staff. You need to be able to think of pitch as any and all three representations, and be able to switch from one representation to another instantaneously. The longer that it takes you to identify notes, the longer it will take you to do every subsequent task in future lessons. You should recognize notation as quickly as you recognize the letters of the alphabet. You are learning to read and write music. The musical staff is a way to graph how high or low a pitch is. The letter-named notes, or the white keys on the piano, are the only ones that are represented on the musical staff. Staves are usually made of 5 parallel horizontal lines that create 4 spaces in between them. A staff is a lot like the Cartesian coordinate plane from geometry class. If you were to extend the notches on the y-axis into lines, these would be the lines of the staff. These lines can then be labeled with letters instead of numbers. Just as you would graph the height of an object on the Cartesian plane, you can graph the pitch height of a sound on a musical staff. Instead of using a dot, as you might in geometry class, you use a slanted oval for music notation. This is called the note head. The oval may be solid or empty, depending on the rhythmic information it must convey. To know what pitch any of these notes will represent, we need to label at least one of the spaces or lines of the staff with a letter name. The rest can then be figured out and memorized. To label one of the lines of the staff with a letter name, we use a symbol called a clef. There are 3 clefs currently in use: the C clef, the bass clef, and the treble clef. The most frequently used clef sign is the treble clef. This is ironic, since being the treble clef means that it was traditionally the 3rd clef, not the 1st. The treble clef is used for instruments and voices whose range is primarily above middle C or C4. This clef indicates where the 5th note above middle C, the note G, is located on the staff, the 2nd line up from the bottom. The discussion on musical intervals will demonstrate the importance of the musical 5th. For now, it will suffice to say that this musical interval has determined the evolution of the clef signs. Notice that the curl near the seat of the clef sign is placed directly on the G line. Many people learn the names of the lines and spaces separately. They are spaced every other letter name. To learn the lines in treble clef, many people remember the phrase, "Every good boy does fine." E, G, B, D, F. To remember the spaces in the treble clef, they spell the word face, F-A-C-E. The bass clef is used primarily for instruments whose range is below middle C. The bass clef indicates the note that is a 5th below middle C, the note F. Notice that the dot of the big comma is on the F line, and the 2 dots to the right of the big comma surround the F line. To remember the lines in bass clef, rearrange the treble clef phrase to be, "Good boys do fine always." G, B, D, F, A. The spaces in the bass clef are Ace G, A, C, E, G. The C clef is a movable clef, that is, it can be placed on any of the 5 lines of the musical staff, and labels that line as middle C, C4. The 2 most common forms of the C clef are the alto clef and the tenor clef. The alto clef is always used by violists. The tenor clef is often used by bass clef reading instruments with an extended upper range, such as cello, bassoon, or trombone. The C clef is the least used of the common clefs. Now, using a staff, a clef, and a note head, we can graph the pitch height of a sound as a musical note. Remember that middle C is C4. The treble clef is used to notate the pitches D4 through G5. Remember that the treble clef indicates where the note G4 is positioned on the staff. The bass clef is used to notate the pitches F2 through B3. Remember that the bass clef indicates the position of F3 on the staff. The C clef is used to designate middle C on the staff. The tenor clef is used to notate the pitches C3 through F4. The more commonly used alto clef is used to notate the pitches E3 through A4 on the staff. Together, the clefs actually overlap on our graph of musical pitch space. Though you would rarely, if ever, see a real musical staff written like this, you can see how the clefs relate to each other to graph pitch height. Many times the treble and bass clefs are combined to create a grand staff. This is one of the most useful graphs for music notation. It spans over 3 octaves of pitch space and is less cluttered. The absence of a line for middle C, C4, gives our mind a marker, like the arrangement of black and white keys on the piano, so that we can easily navigate our way around the graph. Since there is no line for the pitch C4, notice that a temporary line is drawn just for that note. This temporary staff line is called a ledger line. Ledger lines are just like staff lines, but they only extend under, over, or through the note that they support. In order to represent notes that lie beyond the range of the staff we are using, we can simply add extra lines for each note as needed. The pattern of note names, of course, remains the same. You can use as many ledger lines as necessary. However, if an excessive number of ledger lines are needed, or if an excessive number of notes need ledger lines, perhaps a change of clef or the use of the ottava or basso sign might be more appropriate. When placed above a note or series of notes, an ottava symbol means to play an octave above or below the written line, respectively. Notice that when ledger lines are used and the note is on a space, there are not ledger lines on both sides of the note. The extra line is not really needed to convey the information, so it is not used. The grand staff often has extra space in between the treble and bass clef staves. This configuration is most often used for piano music and theory exercises. The notes are attached to one or the other staff so that C4, while lying intervallically directly in the middle of the 2 staves, will actually be written closer to one or the other, depending on the staff to which it belongs. Your skill-building work will incorporate your keyboard, note naming, and notation skills. You need to be able to understand pitch in terms of sound, name, location on the keyboard, and location on the staff. These are the most fundamental building blocks of tonal music.